Eternal Decks, Flip Pick Towers, and Rave Racer. This is Staying In.
Oh, it's just the tuna bus. Oh.
Do you think we need to re-explain that joke? Or
So it's good. It's good podcast best practice to not have too many in jokes, and I do feel like we've got to the point now where we have quite a few of them. So tuna bus is oh god, that's bad that I've forgotten what the joke is.
have you forgotten what tuna bus relates
Oh
to?
no! What is it, Sam?
So tuna bus relates to we say at any time that there is just the two of us. It's just the tuna bus.
It's just the tuna bus.
And it goes back to a time probably 20 years ago when I went on a cycle ride across the World War II grave sites of northern France.
Yep.
Don't ask.
Yep.
And in a small village in France, we stopped off at a local pub where a Korean man was living his dream of owning his own karaoke bar, but he was the only person who was singing in it. And when we arrived there, he was singing the Bill Withers classic, Just the Two of Us.
Mm-hmm.
But because English isn't his first language, it came out sounding like it's just the tuna bus.
Of course. Now I remember. And
then from that point onwards,
yeah,
whenever it's been just the two of us, we've always said it's just the tuna bus.
to honour his spirit.
To honour his spirit. Honestly, I've never seen a happier man, and I do often think about him and of that memory and of just one guy just living
his life.
their life.
Man, wouldn't that be incredible? To be that happy, to be singing songs to a slightly disinterested crowd, but giving it your everything.
Absolute everything.
Oh, it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. We can all wish to be that happy. Well, that's good. And listener, we normally do this at the end, but like stayinginpod@gmail.com. If you don't know some of the in jokes and you want us to repeat what those are, do please just let us know. Like, when we'll try to remember. God, we'll try to remember what the in jokes are. Let us know. Sam, it is just the tuna bus today, and
Yes.
My question, as always, is: what do those two think that's more important than hanging out with their friends Sam and Peter? What do they think they're doing? What do you think? And more importantly, actually, scratch that, Sam. What do you think they're doing right now? Because I've got bets.
You've got bets?
I've got bets. I've got bets on what I think those two are up to. But I'd love to hear what you think that they're currently.
Well, let's do some deduction.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, I'm currently learning how to do cryptic crosswords. So I'm going to try and deduce.
Here we go.
What I think.
Yep.
They're both up
You've
to.
been training for this.
Let's look at the facts. Okay.
You've been training for this.
They both recently turned 40.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Big birthday. The big B.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting. So, it's all right. The baby of the group.
Yeah.
And so I think that's playing a factor into what they're into what they might be doing.
Assuredly. What are 40-year-olds up to on when are we recording this? A Tuesday evening.
A Tuesday evening.
What could they possibly be up to on it?
After 8:00. I know what they're not doing.
Yeah.
They're not doing. I know they're definitely not doing any stuff that I see posted on a lamppost.
What, like looking for a cat?
What? Or maybe it's because I'm in London at the moment. Like, most lampposts are just full of like rave, Hackney rave.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Rather than like, have you seen Mr. Tibbles?
Yeah, that says. I mean, you don't want to dox yourself, but it says a lot about where you live.
Yeah,
compared to where I am right now.
That's fair. Yeah, rave. Whoopsie doodle. The cat got out. Yep. Okay, so they're not doing one of those things.
They're not doing anything that you would attach to a lamppost. And I think that they're not together.
I think we can assume that.
So I think Chris is having a lovely meal and getting ready to get his head down for the night.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That was my bet.
And I think Dan is having a lovely meal and getting ready to have his put his head down for the night.
Do you know what? I put good money on that one as well. That's the terrible part. We always want to reflect when we hit big numbers, right? And that's the thing that obviously you won't know this because, as you say, you are you're the baby face, classically. But when you hit 40, there's definitely a moment when you go, I'm just gonna have a little reflection. Or when you hit a big milestone, for example, in something that you do, there's always that moment of reflection where you look back and you go, okay, what am I doing? Am I living my best life?
What am I doing?
What am I doing? Am I living my best life? Am I in my tuna bus years?
True. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
What is my karaoke? What's my small pub in France?
Yeah, that's the question everyone's asking. What's my small pub in France? And I think for both Chris and I would put good money on Dan as well, though I would say with Dan it's a slightly wider outsider on this one. I think basically having a lovely dinner and getting ready for a lovely evening of having a sleep or maybe a nap on the couch, and then waking up at 10:30 or 11 o'clock with oh god, and then having to get up and go and get into bed properly, which always feels like really weird, and having to struggle through brushing your teeth, but you're like, but I was already asleep, but you should, so you do. Yeah, I think you know what, I think that's what they're up to. And as a little bit of a because we have to again think about podcasting standards here, we need to leave people wanting more. So make sure to check in next episode, to find out what were Chris and Dan up to.
What were they actually up to?
What were they doing?
Oof. I mean, it's hardly cereal, but I'm gripped.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Do you know what? I've been looking back as well. Nice little segue. Thanks very much.
And you have also turned 40.
And I have also turned 40. Coincidence? I think not.
You look great, by the way.
Thanks, pal. You look good as well. But then you've got a year on us, so
not a year.
Well, not a year, but on paper,
5 months.
It looks like a year. Yeah. Well, it looks like a year on paper.
Well, I told someone that I told someone that I was turning 40 soon, and they went, and there was visible shock.
Yeah, I get that too, but I get that from 40. Oh God.
Only?
Yeah, only. No, but I think that is something that happens to our. We're probably mostly speaking to people who are sort of vaguely our generation, right? They're in their 40s, maybe their early 30s, maybe their late 50s. A group of people that you wouldn't, if you saw them gathered together. I like to think of our listeners as a group of people that if we met them in a pub, you'd think, yeah, that makes sense. There's probably no 12-year-old who's listening to this regularly. If there is, please, good Lord, let us know, and also let your parents know that, because this is not good. But there's also
a totally unthreatening group of individuals.
Yeah, exactly. The least alpha group you've ever seen in a pub, right? People that you would absolutely say this is the group that basically is just nice, right? And I include myself as a part of that, right? I'm not an alpha. No, none. I wouldn't say I mean, Dan is obviously, but like other than Dan in the group, none of us are that. I would say, you'd look at the group of us and our listeners and go, that makes sense, right? They're having a lovely time,
Yeah.
And it makes me think to myself, we are probably that generation that like does get told to us, oh, you don't look your age, which is either a lovely compliment or a damning indictment of how unprofessional we look at all times.
I also think it's that thing where if you spend any amount of time on Reddit, there is you do often see a lot of photos of people back in the day in their 30s looking like they're in their 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a bit old hat to say, but people did look older.
They did.
A long time ago.
They did. There was definitely a shorter lead time from, a nice t-shirt, a nice shirt, a nice, coiffured haircut to poorly fitting knitwear jumper and, noticeable hair coming out of the nose. It was a quicker turnaround. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No Manscaped back then.
No, absolutely. Anyway,
you were reflecting.
So I've been reflecting, and what I've been reflecting on is, so I've talked about it before. I love racing games, and I love old arcade games, and I love video game history. And this episode, I bring to you my thoughts on a video game called Rave Racer. Rave Racer. Have you heard of this game before, Sam?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
So it's not Ridge Racer.
So it is Ridge Racer, but it's not Ridge Racer. It's part of the Ridge Racer series, but it's called Rave Racer.
Okay.
As part of it.
What takes it from a ridge to a rave?
Well, the answer, supposedly, as far as I can tell, is that if I had to take a guess, I think it's because this is the third of the Ridge Racer games, and the first two Ridge Racer games is Ridge Racer and Ridge Racer 2, which is if people are like, but it's Ridge Racer Revolution. It's not. It's Ridge Racer 2. Rave Racer is the third game in the arcades. It was released in 1995, so this was actually around the period of time that the original Ridge Racer was coming out on PlayStation 1 and was basically a must-have launch title. Effectively, it showed the original Ridge Racer was showing the power of the PlayStation 1 at launch. Incredible thing. But Rave Racer was coming out the same year, and I think they wanted to kind of distinguish. No, this is not Ridge Racer. That's previously.
Right, okay.
This is like the new entry, because I think they needed to kind of distinguish between those things. Later, they would go back to the Ridge Racer naming format. And indeed, funnily enough, the third game to be released on PlayStation from the Ridge Racer series is actually called Rage Racer. So it's not even Rave Racer that comes out as the third one. So it's a very complicated history, but it's by Namco, same company. I think it had much of the same development team. But its kind of push is there's a new... The drifting feels different to the original Ridge Racer, and the visuals are much more intense, I would say, and I would think also the music is much more intense too. It's got a slightly different aesthetic in terms of its sound, a little bit in terms of its visuals as well. But if you're not familiar with Ridge Racer, it is basically an arcade racing game where the structure of the game is you have a car, you are driving said car, and you are racing around tracks, and the idea is to make sure that you reach the checkpoint for each of the circuit tracks. So there's like 2 or 3 checkpoints per lap. Make sure that you reach the checkpoint within a given time limit so that you don't run out of time. And then ideally you also try to come in first place by beating the other competitors who are there.
I do have some questions.
Okay.
Now you've explained.
Now I've explained what a racing game is. Yeah.
What a racing game is. Yeah. I do have some questions specific to Rave Racer.
Ask.
Because I have played it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
But why is the first thing you see when you press play on Rave Racer is
Go on.
a girl's bum?
Well, Sam, it's 1995. Okay. So there is do you know the concept of an attract mode? Do you know this phrase? Have you heard of this phrase before?
Well, that's what I kind of that's the first thought. Is it kind of zoomed? It sort of sent me nostalgically back to being an adolescent in an arcade.
Yeah, because what are you going to look at, right? Like genuinely, like the we have to remember this is a very different period of time. It doesn't excuse anything, and it doesn't mean that what that stuff is okay.
No.
But one thing I would say is that we have to look at this game in the context of its time. And arcades at this period of time, they were built for boys, not men, boys. They were built for teens, probably, so going through puberty, that kind of thing. They were built for grabbing your attention as quickly as possible. These attract modes, they were designed to make you look at the thing and want to play the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So the attract mode at the beginning of this, you're absolutely right. Before you even put a credit in the system, you see a nice lady's polygonal bum, very polygonal bum. It is the first instance, funnily enough, of what becomes a bit of a trope in Ridge Racer games, which is there is always a Ridge Racer girl. There is always a character who is, in later games, they would be the person waving the go flag, basically, at the beginning of a race. And some of them became very, very famous. Obviously, they're all virtual characters. But this one, it's 1995 arcade hardware trying to show an attractive young lady, basically, and it is meant to draw the eye of the teen boys that were in the arcades.
I was actually quite shocked by how
blatant,
disorientating the whole process, because first of all, there's no sound.
Nope.
It's just the woman form
Yep.
sharply intercut with a fast car.
Yep.
Back to woman, back to car,
Yep.
back to woman, back to car, back to woman, back to car. And it gets faster and faster and faster.
Yep.
And then it's just like Rave Racer.
And it's that's what you need to know. You know, like, and really, funnily enough, you didn't need the woman there. That's the interesting part about the whole thing. Like, she's not in it really. There's very little to do with her. You're right. It has that strangeness to it, which you just don't see in. First of all, in console games, because they don't need to do attract modes, and second of all, you don't see them in modernity, right? Because we are talking about, again, looking back, we are talking about a 30-year-old game at this point.
Absolutely.
We are talking about a 30-year-old game. So the game is part of the Arcade Archives collection. We've talked about this before a couple of times, actually, on the podcast. We've covered a bunch of their games. We've tended to cover the 3D games, and indeed this is one of those 3D games, and again it's a Namco game. It's by Hamster Corporation, but obviously the original game was by Namco. So there's a bunch of interesting stuff as part of this. First of all, it splits out again into the Arcade Archives and Arcade Archives 2 versions. If you get the Arcade Archives 1 version, you are likely getting it on a lower powered system, so you're probably getting it on a Switch 1. Or something along those lines. If you are getting the Arcade Archives 2 version, you are getting it on a more modern device. Now that's really important because those versions do have pretty significant differences. If you get the Arcade Archives 1 version of this, it is a single player game. So you are racing against computer opponents, and it's basically as if the arcade cabinet was in single player mode and you're racing by yourself. It's great. You'll have a good time, and everything in this discussion about this will apply to this, except if you get the Arcade Archives 2 version of this game is actually 1 to 4 player split screen. Now what that means is that the PlayStation 5 is powerful enough, obviously, to run essentially 4 different versions of the same arcade cabinet on its own on the device, and that means that 4 players can play on the same screen with this setup, and that is unheard of.
I don't get that though, because the Switch brought us Breath of the Wild, and you're telling me it can't support 4 arcade cabinets working interdependently.
The thing you have to remember is that it's 4 sets of logic, 4 sets of visuals, 4 sets of rendering, 4 sets of audio, like 4 sets of the code running, and all of it has to speak to one another, right? It is the amount of stuff that's going on in parallel is really quite an intense amount. Do I think they could have made it work on a Switch 1? Maybe. It's certainly possible to make that happen, but I get the feeling that Hamster chose, well, we'd rather do things that were keep up the higher frame rate, keep up the arcade visuals. I think they'd rather have a purer experience, because I think people who want to buy the Arcade Archives games are really looking to experience something that they've either not experienced for a long time or not been able to experience before. And this also, that leads me on to my next point, which is one of the reasons this is a really cool release is that we've never had access to this game. This game has never been on consoles before. Rave Racer was never released on PS1 at the time. It's never been part of a collection. This is the first time we've been able to play this outside of, to be blunt with you, Japanese arcades. I mean, it was in American arcades as well, but really, it came to Europe, I'm sure, but it wasn't a huge presence at the time. The period that we're talking about here, arcades weren't really doing particularly well certainly in the UK. And Rave Racer, it was still, arcade culture was still a big thing in Japan, but we've not really had a ton of exposure to this thing. And it brings the arcade, the SD version and the DX version of both the English releases, the Western releases, and the Japanese releases. And there are small content changes from what I can tell between the two.
This is what I was going to ask you. My next question after the bum and the car bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So I booted it up. Once I'd calmed down from bum car.
I know. Yeah, I took 5 minutes too.
After I'd done all that, you go to play the game.
Yep.
And you go, right, race.
Yep.
And then it's Japanese SD, Japanese DX, English SD, English DX, and I had no idea what I was doing, selecting.
Yep.
And I did a race in Japanese DX only because it sounded cooler, and English DX, and didn't spot any differences.
Yep.
So I am none the wiser of what any of that stuff means.
One of the big differences between SD and DX is DX has the ability to use a clutch. You can get into the main sort of driving mechanism of the game a little easier. So Ridge is always about, and Rave Racer by extension is primarily focused around drifting, precision driving, but mostly around drifting. And with SD, there is no clutch, which means that you have essentially less options to get into that space. You can still use gears and all that kind of thing, but there's no clutch there. So again, that's one of those things that Ridge Racer purists will probably be like, well, I have a preference over whether or not I race like this or like this. Whereas for people like you and I, generally, and I think I'm probably a little bit more interested in like the arcades and games history in that way, certainly racing games in that way. For me, I'm like, For you, you're like, I didn't even notice, right? And the only reason I know this, by the way, is because I dug through the manual that's also included in the digital version of the game that does go through some of these differences and talks to you about how you're meant to do things and how you're meant to kind of engage with the game, what some of the differences are. It doesn't go into too much of that, and I would say that one bit of critique I would have about the game is that I would love to see, and I think this is the same with all of the Arcade Archives actually. I would love to see like more additional content provided as part of it. Like I would have loved like a little 10-minute mini documentary from, even if it was just like a few different people from who worked on it, or just the people who are like porting it, just to say, this is a bit of the history. This is why it's different. Here is how some of the best times get made. Some of the things. I think some of that stuff would be really, really fascinating to watch or read, even just read about that kind of thing. And there isn't that stuff. But what there is 4 tracks, kind of. That's some of them are essentially variations of a track. And there is one of them is at least very much based on the original Ridge Racer. And because it's an arcade machine, there is also hidden stuff. And again, you have to kind of go rootling around to find it. So you can change car. So you actually start with a blue car. And unless you know that you can change it, you will not change it, because as you put the coin in, it will say, do you want automatic or manual? Do you want the normal track or a more expert track? What music do you want? Well, you can change the music. So there are 2 discs worth of soundtracks, and you can change those.
The music is great.
The music is great. We need to talk about the music in a second.
Yeah.
You can change the car that you're in. So you can actually change that, but again, it's a combination of different inputs into the controller itself. You can go and play around with some of the dip switches, so you can change the difficulty of the game. There are multiple modes that are provided that are kind of outside of the arcade experience. So there's like the arcade original version, then there is something called caravan mode, there is a high score mode, there is a time trial mode, and again, all of these things you can use. You can actually for a bunch of these, you can put your times online and compete with others all around the world, and that's quite a fun experience to do. But yeah, it's a big, bright, colourful game. But the thing that really sets this one out for me is the music, because God, it's weird. Some of the music some of the music is absolutely like the soundtrack composition is amazing. Like weird, good, just to be clear. But like, have you there's like GABA tracks, for example, where it's like proper like GABA, yeah. And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then there's slightly more ethereal, almost like, I guess you'd maybe call it like progressive, like dance and that kind of stuff. There's the soundscape itself, like the soundtrack is amazing, like weird selections, but cool, and strange instrument choices at certain times as well. The soundscape itself has got, you can hear a rival basically shouting at you, saying like, "Haha, I've bumped into you." You can hear another commentator over the top saying, "Come on, you got to keep it up. You got to," all that classic arcade getting you jazzed kind of stuff. It's just this sensory overload in the music, in the flashing lights, the like all of this stuff. And if you want to, you can also replicate some of the more dedicated cabinet experience. You can turn on gyro controls, for example. You can use your controller as a wheel if you want to do some of that stuff. I would actually recommend you don't, but because it's really hard. But again, there's lots of different extras that it's kind of adding into this thing. And at the end of the day, this thing's like, I think it's under a tenner. Like it's it's not a gigantic investment of money. It's absolutely bonkers. Like, to me, it's just a really, what's the best way of thinking about this? To me, it's a blessing that we get to play these games, and they are not, just to be clear, they're not going to be forever. Like, for me, they're great. I really like them, and I continue to enjoy them. I do think that there is an upper limit to like the kinds of people that will be interested in playing this. Like, if all of this sounds boring, it's boring to you. Like that's fine. I'm not going to convince you. But like a big, colourful racer like they don't make anymore, man, like I have missed games like this for years. Like, why aren't they making games like this anymore? And this is your opportunity for $17 or whatever it is on an Xbox to go and play around with it. So yeah, that's what I think about a video game.
Can I tell you what I think about a board game?
I'd love to hear about your thoughts on a board game, actually. What have you been playing recently? Because I'm always fascinated to hear what you've been playing.
Quite a few things actually lately. I've been playing Eternal Decks,
Okay.
which is such the sought after game that I had to buy it in French.
Oh, mon Dieu.
I know, yeah. Ooh la la.
Indeed.
But it's incredible. I've only played it a couple of times, and I feel like I need to play it a bit more to really believe that it's actually that good and not just hype. And also the fact it's about 5 or 6 games in one.
Okay. So what am I playing? How am I engaging with this?
Eternal Decks?
Yeah.
So oh my god. Right, so Eternal Decks is a card game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cooperative card game where you are rescuing and reviving eternal creatures from eternity,
right.
and the aim of the game overall is to descend through these different levels of eternity to rescue a dinosaur egg.
Okay. Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
The game it's difficult to describe because, as I said, there's lots of different games within it. But the base game, where it sort of starts you off at, is you have these 3 rows called the field. There's like an upper, a middle, and a lower. And at the end of each of these fields are Eternals, and under each Eternal is a deck of 8 cards. And on your turn, there are a couple more things that you can do, but basically what you do is you take a card from your hand and you play it in one of those rows in the field.
Okay.
Certain rows have certain rules and requirements that you have to follow. For example, the mountain, or the montagne in my version, you have to play low to high numbers. The grotto or the cave, you have to play high to low, you're descending.
Right.
And when you put the last card into that row, you then get to pick an Eternal. That Eternal is revived, and then you get those cards and put them into your deck. And that's important because if you ever run out of cards, if you ever cannot play a card on your turn, the game is over.
Right. Okay.
And why that's important is you only start off with 5 cards in your hand at the start of the game. And in your deck. You only have 5 cards, and that's it. So
okay.
It very, very quickly becomes very, very important to make sure that everyone around the table is doing things in a very, very particular way to make sure that they get access to a new, basically, hand of cards from these Eternals. And then there's like a meta game where the other rules for playing cards into the field is that you can't put the same number next to each other and you can't put the same colour next to each other. And everyone starts off the game representing one colour. So like red or yellow or blue or green.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you pick up an Eternal card, you can see what colour and you can see what number is in their deck. So there is a really lively discussion in terms of, right, we've got quite a lot of blue, so I might get the Eternal that's got a lot of yellow in it and got lots of high numbers. And then maybe you on your turn pick the Eternal that's got lots of red cards in it and lots of low numbers so that we can make sure we get through the next following rounds.
Okay.
But as another added wrinkle is when you revive an Eternal, each Eternal will then put a curse onto your game. And those curses range from things like you cannot play a 1 anywhere at any time.
Right, okay.
You can't play a 4, you can't play a 7. They restrict what you can do until you do something called generating a duel. And to generate a duel, you do other things like giving up cards from your hands. Like just saying, here's 3 cards, right, generate a duel, right, that curse is gone. And that's important because, as you probably already guessed, cards are a finite resource.
Yeah, of course.
Like this is a deck builder where you are fighting to get cards all of the time. and it's a race to the bottom. It's a literal race to the bottom where you are constantly trying to gauge the need to keep on playing with the need to quote unquote complete the game and do what it is that you're doing. And I have to tell you, like, that it is such a thrilling game when you are literally racing a board game. When you're playing it with people and you get to a point where, right, I feel like we've cracked this puzzle. I feel like we're only a few more turns away from winning. And someone's just like, yeah, but I'm running out of cards here. And it's a bit like that. It's a bit like that Rave Racer kind of thing. It's that feeling of you've got this race you're trying to complete, but you're also trying to get to the checkpoint in time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are in the race. If you cannot get to that checkpoint in time and cross it, then it doesn't matter whether you're first or you're last. You're out of the race.
It reminds me of that. Is it called Sky Patrol? Is that what it's called? Sky thingy? What's the one where you're trying to land a plane?
Oh, yes. Sky Team.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of. It reminds me, in terms of the feeling of that pressure of like Sky Team, right? Like everything, you're getting that feeling of like things are going okay. Oh no, this has gone very wrong now, and now we need to pivot a big chunk of what we're doing to make sure that we do that. So now we've got to play suboptimally over here to make sure that this one area doesn't go completely wrong. That kind of that. Because it is, you're right. Like board games can be. I think you're right. They are thrilling at times. They can feel like, oh god, okay, we really need. The pressure is on now. The race is on to actually get us to this end state. I guess is there any competitive element in this? Is it pure co-op?
It's pure co-op, and I think Sky Team's a really great example actually, because Sky Team is one of only a few games, if not the only other game, I guess The Mind as well, where silence between the players as a rule, or at least limited communication between the players as a rule, actually works to the benefit of the game.
Yes.
Because I've played loads of games where limited communication or quote unquote silence amongst the table feels like an afterthought in terms of design and an unnecessary complication just to make things a bit more difficult, where actually another mechanic or a different rule set would have served the same purpose without unnecessary limited communication. Because what tends to happen is when someone tells you cannot speak or you cannot communicate, is that you naturally rail against it.
Yeah.
And I think if you've ever played The Mind, you'll know exactly what I think about. When The Mind, you are told not to communicate, but you just can't help yourself. You can't help just raising your eyebrows or just winking at the table you just can't help it. I think Sky Team does a really excellent job because all the communication is done through the dice that you place and where you place them, and that is just enough information that you don't need to do any communication on the top. And Eternal Decks also solves this problem in terms of, like, it's a cooperative game and the communication rules say so you're not allowed to tell other people around the table what number and what colour cards you've got in your hand. All other information is fine, and so you can talk, but you just can't say, I've got this number or I've got this colour card in my hand.
Yep.
But you do get these things called communication discs, and at any point throughout the game, you can place and put down these discs wherever you want on the game board. By the way, I forgot to mention the game board is like a silk linen board, and it's amazing.
Okay.
It's a lovely thing to like unfurl and put onto the table.
I'll bet.
So, for example, where the communication discs come in real handy is, for example, if you're at the top of the field and you're going from low to high numbers, and you're at number 7 and you've got 2 spaces left, what I was doing was putting a space next to the 7, just putting a communication disc down next to the 7 to tell the player next to me that, don't worry, I've got this. I've got that space there.
Nice.
I've got it, don't worry.
Nice.
Or I've got the next 2 spaces, or I've got the space after it. So if you can put something for it, that would be what I want. Or I would put it on a space on the board just to let them know, right, that's what I'm intending to do next. That's where I'm intending to go. That's where I want to play. But the crucial thing that I think Eternal Decks gets right in terms of that limited communication is it limits just enough to make it a puzzle, and just enough to make you lean into the other parts and the other parts of the game, and the other parts of the game are so robust that you are supported in that. And what I mean is the fact that when you pick up a deck from the Eternals, on that card it tells you what was in that deck. It's shuffled, but you can just tell what's in that deck, and it's only 8 cards. And when that goes into your personal supply, it goes into your personal supply as is, and goes underneath any cards that you are yet to play. Also, the backs are different. So, for example, if you pick up the Siren deck or the Lion deck or the Medusa deck, on the back of it is a picture of a lion, Medusa, or a mermaid. Right. So, when you're looking around the table, all right, Pete, he's gotten into his Lion deck.
Yeah.
Which means I can just look over there and go, right, that Lion deck has got these numbers in it and these colours.
Gotcha.
Right, Chris, he's got into his Medusa deck, which has got these colours, which has got these numbers. And I'm currently into this deck, which has got these colours and these numbers. And because it's always a race to the bottom, you're only playing the deck that you've got access to. The puzzle then becomes a puzzle about really taking an interest into what everyone else is doing and where they're up to in terms of their play states.
Nice.
It's almost like card counting. It makes you feel like you can card count, but you're not. It's not really, because the information's there in front of you. But it means you have really interesting discussions around the board in terms of where someone's up to with what the cards they've got in their hands.
Yeah.
How much that deck has they've got left. Because you haven't played that card yet, which means I know it's going to be coming up soon. Fantastic, which means I can play this card. And as I said, it means you're not simply going, right, I've got a 7, I'll put that there. Oh, brilliant, I've got an 8, I'll put that there. You're really encouraged to absorb as much of what the game is telling you in order to play the game most effectively and efficiently.
Yeah.
And for me, that is just an immaculate piece of design, and absolutely where limited communication and restrictions in communication can really help lift and elevate a board game.
Yeah.
Because like in Sky Team, when you do it, it just feels fantastic, and knowing that you didn't speak throughout the whole thing is just amazing. I love that game for how it does that.
I think because that's one of the one of the big challenges of co-op games, right? Like there's always as groups of humans, we always want to help each other out, and what that leads to in board games is quarterbacking, right? Whereby there's one person who knows how the game works and therefore is not playing the whole game by themselves, but I mean is playing a lot of the game for everybody, right? And I do think that there is a tendency to say, okay, well then no communications, right? But the problem with that is, as you say, again, as human beings, we really want to communicate with each other. So we'll always figure out a way to do it that isn't just, as you say, like the eyebrows, the sort of like pointing at the thing and going, and you're not technically talking. I think by limiting the communications, you're essentially giving players an outlet for their ability to try to, like, you're basically saying, be smart. Be smarter about how you communicate.
Yeah.
You have a limit here. You have to deal with that to be able to play this game. But you're not saying, and the limitation is you cannot communicate. because I think at that point, a co-op game in which you can't communicate is, I don't. That's just 4 individuals playing a game individually and hoping that it sort of works out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, this sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm really enamored with it. It does so much stuff right with mechanics that I've always felt like they have really massive amount of potential. Like, for example, card counting, limited communication. I've always known that deck building has been one of my favorite mechanics, but this just does deck building in a way which is so insanely brilliant. As I said, like a racing deck building game.
That's cool.
It's just, yeah, I've not really felt like this about a game in a long time, but yeah, I've really only scratched the surface with it, I think.
Amazing. Oh, we got time for something else?
Yeah, I've got time for another one if you want another game recommendation. It's not even out yet.
Okay, well, I mean, if we're going to be trendsetters, if we're going to look, because we were looking to the past earlier, why don't we look to the future now?
Yeah, so if you're in the US, this is out in a couple of days, and you're listening to this on release. It's out on the 17th of March. If you're listening in the UK, you've got a few more days to wait. It's out on the 19th of March. And this is Flip Pick Towers.
Okay.
Flip Pick Towers, which is in some ways is, if you're going to ask me what happens in the game, I'll just refer you to the title, which is just Flip Pick.
So you flip,
Towers.
you pick, and there are some towers.
Yes, that is correct. So this is from Osprey Games. It's Osprey Games.
We like
Rob
them.
Fisher, Adam Porter made it. Beatrix Papp drew it, and some incredible art actually on it. And I know we kind of said we're looking forward, but we are looking back in a little bit.
Okay.
Because it's the return of the roll and write.
Hey.
Kind of.
Okay.
So it's been a while. It's been a while since we got a game like this, and in some ways I thought that the mechanic had kind of died, and unfortunately been replaced by trick-taking games.
Yeah.
But no, the roll and write, or the flip and write, is kind of back.
Alive and well.
So Flip Pick Towers is a game that sort of is definitely a bit strange in a way, because it feels like if it came out in 2019 or in 2020, it would have very much been of the zeitgeist of that time. You know, we were playing around that time things like Ganshon Clever.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Cartographers.
Yeah.
And that, for a moment, it just felt like rolling and writing games or flipping and drawing games were just never going to go anywhere. And then suddenly they just all went and the bubble kind of burst. So it kind of, Flip Pick Towers does kind of feel a little bit like a game of a different age, because you are doing what you did in Welcome To or in Cartographers. You are flipping cards. The cards have structures on them and numbers, and the aim of the game is to effectively build those structures and to control and manage the numbers around them in order to allow you to build more and maximize the space that you've got. So in the same way that in Welcome To you did that, but it was on a street, in here in Flip Pick Towers you are building a magical castle. And you are all architects, and you've got this wonderful like blueprint style paper that you're drawing off.
Okay. Yeah.
And you are tasked with building the best castle, and the best castle wins because it's got the most points on it.
Yep.
I think, to not bury the lead, I think the thing that has impressed me most about Flip Pick Towers, and you can see this on our Instagram page actually at Staying In Pod, And I think it's why I kind of loved Cartographers a bit more than I did Welcome to.
Okay.
Only ever slightly, but a bit more. Is that when you finish a game like Flip Pick Tower, it doesn't matter whether you win, whether you won, or you lost, or you kind of came a little bit in between. You're left with a pretty cool tower after it. Like,
yeah, you're making something.
you are creating something, and it actually looks pretty decent. Like, I think, Beatrix Papp's artwork and the design of this is so clever, because the things that you are drawing can be as complicated and as artful as you want, or they can be simple and basic as you want, but either way they'll still look cool when they're all put together.
Right, yeah.
And like, I've got a friend of mine who's a graphic artist, incredibly talented artist, and he was just making these wonderful, elaborate castle structures. I can't draw for toffee, but I was still felt like I was able to draw something great on the paper with the cards that were drawn, and in order to get a high score. And I think that for me is a testament of what makes a game like this have sort of longevity in my collection. Like, is it a good puzzler, and is it going to actually get me to create something on the page? And I really like that about it, because the core concept of the game, as I said, is you're building this castle, and the core of all castles, as we know, is towers.
Mm-hmm.
So at a basic level, when you're flipping cards, on most cards they will have towers on them, and each tower will have a number. And as you all know, the basics of architecture is that when you're building towers, the higher numbers go at the bottom and the lower numbers go at the top.
Okay.
The higher your towers, the more points you're going to get from them. With Flip Pick Towers, there's added complications. There's things like roofs, which are really tempting to put on top of your towers. If you're the first person to put on a roof, you get 6 points.
Okay.
But if you put on a roof, you can't put any more towers on top of it.
Right.
But also, a roof looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
And there's part of me that was playing it and goes, the perfect thing now to finish off this tower, even though I've got a bit more room to build it up, it's actually a roof would be really good.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll put a roof on it. There's also dragons that go above the tower, and I'll explain a little bit more about dragons in a second. But dragons are really interesting because they can go above a tower, but if they do, you just can't build again above them. So they kind of like lock in their towers. And dragons are a perfect example of where you get that split, where you get me, who just draws the letter D with some wings on it.
Sure.
And then my friend, who's an amazing artist, who would draw full-on dragons, like resting on top of towers. Right. And the other thing that you get on it is there are things called decorations. So whenever you pick an item to go and build, you get resources. So you get some gold, you get some magic beans, you might get some fabric, and then you're playing this little mini game at the bottom where you're completing these columns. Complete a column and you get access to that resource. If it's a fabric, that means you get to drape a banner down from the side of one of your towers, which again you can decorate. It looks really, really cool. It does look really rad. My favorite thing was the magic beans. So if you collect enough magic beans, depending on which row you completed, you can then draw a beanstalk which weaves its way right up into the requisite place on your blueprint, and you'll get points depending on how big that beanstalk is. But it's amazing graphic design, because a beanstalk is one of those things that's incredibly easy to draw very simply but still looks cool. But if you want to put lots of effort into your bean tower, boy does it look good.
I bet.
And I think the secret sauce of the game, and I think where I really felt like it was doing something a bit different to other games that we've played about 5 or 6 years ago. And it might seem strange when I first mention it, but it's the fact that you go through the deck twice. So you go through the deck in its entirety once.
Okay.
You score, and then you reset the deck and you go through it again, and then you score again.
Okay.
And in some ways, you can maybe look at it and go, well, it's a bit of a easy way of lengthening the game out.
Yeah.
But actually, on a bit of reflection, I've actually come to the conclusion that I think that's actually a really savvy bit of game design. And the deck is the same every time you play. That you don't get rid of the deck at any point. You don't shuffle it and get rid of cards. You play with the same deck every single time you play it.
Okay.
So the same amount of princesses, kings, towers, bridges, dragons, everything turns up every time you play it. It's just the order that it's played in and what it's up against in terms of the display. Because you flip 3 cards, but you can only ever choose 1 to go into your current display. That's the only bit that changes from game to game. But what it means is, from a score attack point of view,
Sure.
is you see the deck, you understand what's in it, you score, and then you know you're going to go through that same deck again. Shuffled, but you're going to go through that same deck again. So, for example, from my point of view, how I took that was, right, I'm going to start building towards this queen objective, or I'm going to start building towards this as a score attack point of view. So I'm going to start prioritizing getting fabrics for banners, so that when the queen turns up, I can put her in this room, and then that means that her current objective, which is scores 3 points for all banners that are in her row, I'm going to start maximizing my points. So the first time round you play it, it's kind of quite foundational. You're just trying to build a good structure around you, which gives you room to grow, gives you a good score to build on. The second time you play it, that second round, you're really thinking about, right, how am I going to tackle these objectives?
Right.
And I think that is really canny design, because I know that Chris doesn't like this kind of mechanic. Sometimes I'm kind of on the fence about it, but objectives in board games, along with restrictions and silence, often feel like things that people add on as a bit of an afterthought in terms of, right, we've designed the main game, let's throw some objectives in there, and then it's always the person who pays attention to them that generally wins, because everyone else is just trying to enjoy the game, and you're just like, I've completely forgotten about that thing over there, and they're just like, right, I've done this, 30 points for me, isn't that fab? But the fact that in Flip Pick Towers you kind of have that fun round where you're just creating, you're just getting stuff down, you're building massive beanstalks, and then you go through the deck again, you're currently like, right, now I've really got to think about this stuff, and what am I actually building towards, what am I actually doing with all of this? And then in some ways you've got to slowly unpick what you've done, live with the consequences of decisions that you've made very, very early on. So it makes it, you almost get both sides of the same coin, right? You're having your cake and eating it. You're having this fun, interesting, roll and write, flip and write experience, but also this really interesting score attack game all at the same time. And I think that if you were to look at one of the reasons why that genre did sort of fade away in one respect, is I don't think it ever really got that right in a lot of the times. A lot of the roll and write games felt like either really, really simple sort of score attack kind of stuff, so like your Ganshon Clevers, or they were sort of very, very sort of flippant, throwaway little mini puzzles like Welcome To. And then Welcome To tried to get a little bit more complicated and do a lot more varied things, and it was quite successful, but I don't think it was that successful at doing that. Whereas Flip Pick Towers feels really robust. But I have to say, I think the thing that impresses me most is the graphical style. I just think it looks really great, and anything that gets me drawing a kick-ass castle is, I think that'll do.
I think that'll do. I think that'll do.
Yeah.
Um,
So, so as I alluded to, it is currently Aircon now. Last day of it. If you're listening to this as the podcast comes out, so we'll talk about Aircon. Chris and I are the only ones going this year, but Chris and I will feedback. We'll review Aircon on the next podcast.
We'll have a huddle.
I'm expecting great things. I sorted out food this year.
Ooh.
Big responsibility.
Ooh.
Big responsibility. And for the first time ever, this is our 5th year of going to Aircon.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, we're going to be having dinner in the Timothy Taylor pub.
Oh, well, now I wish I was going. Oh, a lovely pint of landlord right now. That'd be a pretty beautiful thing. And there is a very nice Timothy Taylor pub in Harrogate. Oh, that sounds brilliant.
Yes,
that sounds absolutely brilliant.
There is.
I will send you a small list of games to keep an eye out for at the Bring and Buy. Just because I definitely want eyes on some of that stuff. That sounds very exciting. Yes. So you'll be there, and it won't be for another week or two, but I'm going to be at Salute having a nice time as well in London. So if you are, hopefully you've already messaged us if you are heading to Aircon, but also drop us an email if you enjoyed it. If you're just hearing this now and you're like, oh, I really enjoyed it, stayinginpod@gmail.com. Let us know how you got on. What was your favourite game of the show? What did you enjoy playing? Mm-hmm. And if you're at Salute, drop us an email and we'll come say hi. Or not, if you don't want to meet us. That's also totally fine. I wouldn't want to meet us. So, or indeed anything else that you want to chat about, that is the email to get us on. You can also reach out to us on Facebook and keep up with when new episodes come out there, as well as see fun stuff on Instagram, which is our favourite, with lots of nice photos of things that we're doing and all that sort of stuff. But we won't spam your feed or anything silly like that. So give us a follow there as well at Staying in Pod for those. Chris, I'll tell you what Chris might be doing, other than settling in for bed right now. He might be updating.
Absolutely.
He could be updating the Spotify playlist.
He could be.
He could be. He is wont to do it. So have a look and give those playlists a little listen if you fancy it. They're basically great playlists based on the things that we talk about in these podcasts. And you can also find us on BGG and Steam, that covers all of the board games that we've ever talked about, and all of the games that are available on Steam are there too. If you give those spaces either a little follow, you can do that on Steam, or just have a quick look around. I think you can follow the podcast as well on BGG. And I think that's all the stuff that we do. I think I'm going to go and...
I think that's it.
I think I'm going to go and have dinner and have get ready for bed. I think that's because I'm 40 now. Right, so,
Well, I'm going to go to my nearest lamppost and find myself a rave.
Yeah. Or a cat.
Or a cat. Take care.